Why do I look like this? The sexy cyborg origin story. Hey everyone! So last week, YouTube did what they do and decided one of my recent videos was sexually suggestive adult content and set it to limited monetization. That means I lose about 90% of the income on the video. What scandalous outfit was I wearing? Well, it turns out they didn't have a problem with my clothes or even me this time. Just my shape. Yes, the video was adult content because of the low resolution just maker's dummy eye laser cut. No, I'm not joking. Yes, my headless, limbless, low-resolution cardboard dummy was just too sexy. These are the 2 time codes and the thumbnail reference. I went back and forth on email for several days, have everything go up the chain and confirmed by humans. They would not budge. That cardboard was just too sexy for them. It should come as a surprise to absolutely no one that they also would not explain why for at least a decade guys have been making far high resolution nude women's torsos on all sorts of machines and no one have heard of them being demonetized. Honestly, it just keeps getting more and more ridiculous with YouTube. It's very frustrating dealing with this kind of thing because a good part of the public response is, well, then why do you look like that? And I've never been comfortable discussing the root of the problem, the reasons why I look the way I do. But I'm tired of people making the worst assumptions and feels like my hands are tied and I can't fully explain and defend myself. So today, I'm finally butching up and sharing my origin story. If you aren't interested in personal stuff and are just here for the tech, don't watch this video. It's long and all very personal, oversharing probably. Please don't go complaining in the comments when I told you not to watch it. This is just my story and maybe why I turned out how I did. I was born here in Guangdong, China during the one-child policy. We can actually have up to 3 kids now, but under the one-child policy, each couple was allowed to have just 1 baby. Chinese rely on our children to support us in old age. That's the main source of retirement income for many of us. Traditionally, daughters marry out of the family, they care for their husband's parents and don't support their own. Usually only sons do. Back then, if you don't have a son, you are going to be in a bad way when you grow old. You couldn't afford to be sentimental. It was hard facts. Childless elderly often lived in pretty serious poverty back then. My paternal grandparents approved of my father's fiancée, my mother. She was a beauty, managed their money well, and cured him of many of his bad ways. But my paternal grandparents have lived through hard times in China, have made the hardest choices, and that changes you. So before my parents could get married, they have to meet one condition. My paternal grandparents insisted my mother become pregnant with a boy first. This was not a very unusual condition back then, to be honest. At least where we are in the South. China is huge and it's different all over, particularly in the North. So while it was a difficult condition, it wasn't outlandish like some of the crazy bride prices you hear about that no one could ever afford. I'm not sure what my mom's was, but her parents wanted a match, and I've heard were quite reasonable. So no one was trying to make things hard for my parents or stand in their way. Now, many of you might say, if you are an adult, who cares what your parents want? Well, for Chinese, it's not like that. To be an unfilial child, that's about as big a sin as it gets for us. Sure, maybe that's not your belief, but for over 1 billion Chinese, it's ours, and we take it very seriously. So, knowing that my grandparents were just being painfully pragmatic, but were probably right given how things were looking back then, my parents agreed to conceive a boy just prior to the marriage. Money was paid, test results were attained. First, they conceived a girl, and so they ended the pregnancy. This sort of gender selection was very illegal, of course. But people find ways. There is too much at stake. It's the end of the family name and line. My parents tried again, but the same thing happened 2 more times and ended the same way. In another place, another time, I might have 3 older sisters, but it's just me. The way my mom tells it, the 4th time she got the test results, looked at my dad square in the eyes and said, "Boy." My dad looked at her right back and agreed, "Boy." But carefully did not look at the test results the way he had the other times. And my grandparents got the good news and bragged to all the neighbors that a fine, strong son was on the way to carry on the family name. They bought appropriate clothes and toys, and when the day came, I popped out. Very much not a boy, a healthy baby girl, in fact. Now, you hear some people say all sorts of terrible things about Chinese parents. I don't think that's true, although they often show their love a bit differently than Western parents. But mine loved me very much, and my grandparents even more, from the moment I was born, and never gave me a reason to doubt it. But the new baby clothes were right there, and there's no reason to correct the neighbors when they stop by to congratulate you on having a son. Then a few weeks go by, and everyone in the neighborhood knows, and why not just sort it all out when it's time for the baby to go to school? After all, there would be embarrassment and lost face and explanations. A baby is a baby, and what does it matter right now? Best to just go along with it a little longer. It was a little white lie. They didn't mean anything by it. It was a chance to be the envy of the neighbors for a few days, to have a little good fortune, a little face, when there just wasn't a lot of that to go around. Just one grinding day after another on the factory line. It was just a small story. But a week turned into a month, and by the time a month turned into years, there was no going back. In the end, I didn't get to wear a dress until I was almost 16. So no, I'm not trans as some of you have guessed. I'm what Westerners would call cis-female, but I was raised and socialized male. This is why I'm a little aggressive and shouty for proper Chinese girls sometimes. I try hard to be more ladylike. It's embarrassing, but it doesn't come easily to me. If you ever wonder why I won't show pictures of back then before all this, it wasn't a happy time for me. The details aren't pleasant or something I want to look back on. And there are paperwork issues it's best to not get into. But I wasn't a tomboy. I didn't feel right about myself. But It was all I knew, and it's just how things were. The few times in the past I've tried to explain it, people didn't understand the circumstance China was in and blamed my family. If given a choice between people thinking less of me or less of my parents, of course, let them think I'm trash. I've always accepted that price. Any Chinese would do the same. But I hope with the full explanation, people will see it was just a circumstance. My parents and grandparents loved me dearly, raised me right, and did the best they knew how. It's just one of those things that happens in hard times, in hard places. It's no one's fault, and I won't have anyone criticizing them for it. My idol Dolly Parton did an interview with the BBC, and in this part, she said something that is so accurate, it's spooky.
I really patterned my look, was a country girl's idea of glamour, after what they call the town tramp. The lady, seriously though, there was this lady, you know, they have them in a mountain town, a country town, there's always a few loose women. But this woman, I thought was beautiful. You know, it's like, and she had this beautiful peroxide hair, had it piled on her head, and red nails, high heel shoes, and I just thought she was the prettiest thing I'd ever seen. And Mama said, oh, she ain't nothing but trash. So I thought, that's what I want to be, Mama. I want to be trash.
That's me Dolly is talking about. That's little Nellie. The neighborhood I grew up in is where Hong Kong businessmen would stash their mainland mysteries and cross over the border on the weekend to visit them. For the ones who didn't have mysteries, there were other ladies, a common trait in the neighborhood. Shenzhen was a much wealthier city back then. When I was around 10 years old, my dad had 2 days off from the factory every month. And those nights, he would take me down to the street vendor and we'd get a whole pile of barbecue lamb skewers and flatbread. We used to sit there on plastic stools and eat until we were stuffed. And I'd watch those fancy ladies walk by. And yes, I really did think they were the most beautiful women in the world. Well, except for my mom, because when you're little, no one is more beautiful than your mom. But they have high heels that clicked on the ground and neck stockings and bows, sequins, chiffon, and curves. And well, I just sit there with my bust hair, thick eyeglasses, tracksuit, and just skate. To me, they glowed. They lit up the street like fireworks in the sky, and I was, well, kind of mousy and invisible. No one looked at me twice. No one looked at me once, usually. They looked right for me like I wasn't even there. I was invisible, and that was just fine because I didn't like looking at myself and didn't want anyone else to either. But sitting there with my dad on those nights when it was too hot to stay inside and he'd roll his shirt up over his belly to catch a breeze, ever since those nights, I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted to sparkle and draw every eye like those ladies did. More than anything in the world, I wanted to be fancy. When I was 16, with the whole family working and too many opportunities for a teenager to find trouble in our neighborhood, I was sent away to another city for boarding school. And with dormitories and 6 girls to a room, well, the jig was up, as they say. No one knew me or my family there. So I was finally free to be myself, well, almost. For most Chinese back then and some now, you get 2 new sets of clothing for Chinese New Year every year. Mostly you wear one while the other one hand dries. So I have 2 button-up shirts and 2 pairs of slacks, and my dad's old belt which went around my waist twice. Now, to be clear, I don't think I would have considered as poor. I never felt poor growing up. You were typical working class. It's just how things were. I was always clean, well-fed, and well looked after. We always found money for school fees. No, we didn't have much, but very few people did at the time. That first night when I walked into the dorm with my belongings in a plastic bag and saw those 5 girls looking back at me for some kind of explanation why a boy was standing in their room, I was too overwhelmed, embarrassed, and humiliated by the situation to speak at first. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I was terrified. I just sat on the floor and bawled like a toddler until they finally got the story out of me, took pity on me, and said about putting things right. One of the taller girls was local, so have her mom drop off her dresses from the previous year that she'd outgrown, and another one of the girls patched them up as good as new with needle and thread. She even used some of her own hair ribbons all around the hem so you couldn't see it was worn down. Really good as new. I couldn't sew, and I imagine my miserable face sniveling away be a pretty prophetic sight no one wanted to have to look at for a whole semester. But those girls got me squared away, and I'll never forget it. They could have scolded me and chased me out. I could have kept things hidden around the boys. I've done it before when I have to. But they took me in, were kind, and got me sorted. That was the most precious gift I ever got. Anyone who's ever in that sort of position, trying to be their real self, has my undying support. I know most have it a million times worse than I did, and I just can't imagine how much harder it must be. I hope one day I can be there for someone else the way those girls were there for me. A week later, I was delirious. I have 3 dresses, a pair of shiny black shoes with gold buckles, and even a little purse I'd gotten with the last of my New Year's red envelope money. There wasn't much I could do about my hair until it grew out, but we found some colorful clips for me to put it in, and that helped. I still have to wear our tracksuit uniform during school hours, but the rest of the time, I was free to be me. I went from feeling like nothing and nobody to, holy crap, look at me, everyone, I'm a real girl. Hey, look at this, girl here. Beep, beep, coming through. And I didn't ever want to be invisible or anyone to mistake me for a boy ever again. I would rather die. People think they're insulting me when they say, she's just doing it for attention. Really? You don't say. Naomi like attention? No. What made you notice? I put lights up along my skirt hem because I really hate attention. I don't like attention, of course. People trying to touch me or bother me. It's not at all sexual for me, but I can't live feeling invisible again. So sure, I've got some wiring issues, some bugs I can't patch, but I'm not hurting anyone and I'm not broken, just a little glitchy. I still run just fine. And those glitches are why I'm here and why I'm talking to you. I told all my friends at school to call me Naomi since I'd heard it on TV and I was sure that was a fancy girl's name. And I had decided I was finally a fancy girl. My Chinese name from when I looked like a boy was nothing but bad memories. And that's why I still don't use it. I'm not that person anymore and no one can make me be them. So from being a confused, boyish 10-year-old, I have successfully moved on to being a confused 16-year-old who looked and acted like a very skinny boy in a dress. But I was happy. I didn't act right, move right, or talk right. I still don't, although I practice. But it was real progress, and I was so much happier. But happy as I was, some things weren't falling into place as expected. For one, girls like boys, and that wasn't really working out. I wasn't sure why boys didn't have any appeal to me, but I practiced some of the stuff boys and girls do together, but with other girls. You know, just so we got it right when we eventually got boyfriends. And keep practicing regularly. I have every intention of liking boys. I have a checklist, and get boyfriend was on it for years. I have a plan. I was going to be a hot girl, and hot girls have strong, handsome boyfriends. I really felt it was very important. My mom had my dad. The fancy girls in my own neighbor have their gentlemen. Anything else wasn't really like, that's not really a possibility. Of course not. But of course, it was. It was really inconvenient. China is not a place anyone would choose to be gay. It's not that we are all terribly homophobic, but 12 years ago, it was definitely not a good idea. And if you didn't come from a rich family, it really limited your prospects and created a risk. Even now it does. It's really hard to judge how much it depends on where you are, what kind of life you live. Honestly, it's all very tenuous. That's about all I can say about it. So I did what many Chinese gays and lesbians of my generation do. Got a partner in the same situation. By the time I was in college, I had myself an enormous Mongolian boyfriend, what you in the West would call a beard. He was the best. I could wear whatever I wanted, go out and drink however much I wanted. He had a cover for me, I had a cover for him. Either no one knew or the few that suspected kept it to themselves. In China, all that is private, people don't think. For Chinese New Year, I played his fiancée and we went to his hometown to see his parents. We even shared a bed. Yes, I have in fact shared a bed with a man. I'm very open-minded, but it was all a very nice arrangement for everyone. During college, on the advice of a friend, I have started studying how to code online. I have good math skills and excellent study skills, as most of us have. With my English, I have no trouble following the tutorials on Team Treehouse and other sites. After 6 months, I was able to get remote work freelancing under a male pseudonym as a junior Ruby on Rails developer. With coding, I have enough money for more than the bare essentials. I got laser eye surgery to get rid of my thick glasses and got my first set of breast implants. Just little bitsy 350cc ones, but that's all they could fit on my flat chest. I have absolutely nothing to start with, completely flat. These aren't augmentations, they are prosthetics. There's nothing there without them. I get a lot of criticism for my implants, but lots of lesbians get top surgery. It's a gender-affirming surgery. It makes us look and feel like who we are in our heads. Our breasts are an incredibly meaningful part of our identity. In the West, it's common for butch women to get them removed. Here in Asia, there's that, but we also often have none to begin with. I did not have any. So, like any lesbian, I got top surgery to reflect how I felt about myself. Only my story goes the other way. The size is dictated by that identity, not male taste. People say they're about sex, and maybe for them they are. For me, they're about visibility and gender affirmation. Same as when I was 16. Look at me, girl coming through, real girl here. Only also, look, this real girl has got boobs now. But college ended, there is a name for women in China who are tricked into marriages with gay men, 同妻. It's a hard life. You either raise a child in a loveless marriage or get a divorce, and the child bears the huge stigma of being raised by a single divorced mother. My Mongolian bear was a good guy, too good a man for that, and wanted a partner who knew what they were getting into. I thought seriously about it. We were a good team, but going back to his province, having a kid and raising them in a loveless marriage, him out every night with his partner, me sneaking time with mine when being a mom and looking after his parents permitted, that wasn't a life. And not how I wanted to raise a kid. I know too many people who try and they're almost never happy, just angry and resentful. So we parted ways. I got a new beer to continue to deter the overly interested and keep my parents happy. It's just how we often do it in China, and it always worked for me. Then, as a graduation present to myself, I visited Thailand for the first time to upgrade my implants, and everything changed. Absolutely stunning. Boyish looking girls would cross the street to come talk to me. And language barrier or not, we figured out that we wanted the same exact thing very, very quickly. And that's when I discovered what they seemed to know instinctively, what I didn't, that I was a D. D is spelled D-E-E, sometimes D-I. It's sort of Thai English, short for lady. In the most simple terms, these are to lesbians what bears are to gays, and the counterpart to these are toms, boyish looking girls. Most of you are familiar with the idea of butch lesbian women. The other direction is femme, what might be called lipstick lesbian in the West. While Western butch femme culture doesn't map perfectly to Tom D culture, there are some similarities. One difference is Western lesbians tend to draw the line at femme, or even high femme. These are like hyper masculine gay bears but femme. We go all the way up to 11, including women like me, cartoons of exaggerated gender expression, and mistaken that expression as something they could only be for the opposite sex. Is as comical as assuming these gentlemen look this way for the ladies. I'm at the very far end of the gender expression spectrum, kind of ultra high femme. For these like me, the shorter the skirt, the higher the heel, the larger the boob, the more D the D. And every Tom can spot me coming. And not just because some parts of me enter a room a few seconds before the rest of me follows. In the West, people describe this appearance as sexualized and get very angry if I say it's not exactly so for me. My appearance has to be for the reason they say it is. Maybe because it makes them feel a certain way. Maybe it's a translation issue because our appearance is not about sex itself for me or most of the D's I know. Our sexy appearance is about visibility and gender expression, not about being sexually desirable to strangers. People insist, men like it, so it must be for men. Or you don't object to men seeing you, so it must be for men. Which makes absolutely no sense to me or the other Ds I know. Heck, lots of these work as dancers in Thailand because if we are going to look this way anyway, it's the best way for many to earn a living. They still go home to their Tom every night. Someone liking it and us being able to benefit from that doesn't mean it's for them. It's for us. But again, trying to explain that distinction across cultures translates poorly. I'll basically settle for any acceptance I can get at the moment. Most of my LGBT identity was shaped in Thailand. It's a short, low-cost flight from Shenzhen, and I visited there as often as I could the next few years. Pre-pandemic, we Ds party with our handsome Toms until late. Those are all girls. In China, we have TP culture. Similar, but different. Here's me on my birthday at a local club. Yes, again, those are all girls. My girlfriend Kaidi, who you've seen me with, is a T. Although because she's weaker, there are also some other gender norms mixed in there. But Kaidi identifies as a T. Almost all Toms identify as women. Ultra high femme is less common in China, so I still identify as a D. Not really a Chinese P, but they are mutually exclusive. My gender expression as a D is very important to me. And while who we happen to sleep with isn't a personality, and I don't let it completely define me, I think it is worth knowing if you want to understand me better. While in a perfect world, I would not have had to explain myself. The reality today is that if you are a high-profile person and you don't explain yourself, people will create their own explanations, letting other people control your narrative and use that to smear you without correction will destroy your reputation. For me, and a lot of other people these days, my reputation is my livelihood, so I can't afford that. Sometimes I can do conservative clothes for a little while, particularly when it's winter or I'm taking Momo for a walk. She'd pull me right off my platform heels. It's fine and practical for a bit. Then after a while, the cloud settles. I start looking in the mirror, wondering if this or that looks kind of boyish. When people in the comments say I have no butt, it starts to bother me, and the little voice whispers, "They're saying you look like a boy." Normally, if I'm all dressed up, that kind of thing bounces right off, but with no armor on, its little teeth sink in and start digging. Then I feel like the bright light I carry inside is slowly dying. I've given away all my fancy clothes to force myself to look more normal at least a half dozen times over the years. I just ended up replacing them. I made it almost 3 weeks once, normal clothes every day, but I also stopped eating. Didn't stop drinking, that's for sure, and still dropped to 38 kilograms, and my friends have to kind of intervene a bit. I eat well when I feel well. You can generally gauge my mood by how chubby I get. I'm a pretty happy girl these days. I try though, and I still try. I really do. But yeah, more conservative Naomi was not a healthy or happy girl at all. And that's my choice, and I guess I'm just not strong enough to be happy with another choice. So the people who state the obvious are right about what I look like, but most of them are wrong about why I look like this. I could earn a better living if I look normal. This is not for anyone but me. There are other reasons I look the way I do, but those are still sensitive topics in China. You know the important parts for now. These days, I embrace how I am and the happiness it brings me. I hope people will look past it long enough to give me a chance to prove my abilities. I don't expect special treatment, but I'd love a fair shot. But in the end, what's important is I'm basically happy. Little 10-year-old Naomi would go apeshit over how I look now. She would be delirious. I'm everything I want to be and everything 10-year-old me could ever dream of. Which is kind of the issue. As happy, healthy, and satisfied as I am, I'm also a very confused 10-year-old's idea of a sexy lady. And as happy as that makes me, it often doesn't make a very good first impression. So that's it. That's my story. I'm a D. I've got some gender expression issues. I don't mean any harm by it. I'm not leading anyone on or raking in loads of cash with it. It's just how I turned out, and it's no one's fault but mine for not being able to move past it. I put links to articles in the description box so you can learn more about some of the cultural issues I mentioned. If you have any reasonable follow-up questions, I'll do my best to answer them in the comment section. Thanks for giving me a chance to explain. You don't owe me that, so I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. And in the future, I'll try to avoid wasting your time with this kind of thing and stick with what I'm really passionate about, the tech. Hope to see you all next time.